Hello and welcome to the video. Today I'm going to go over my almost outlandish 2024 season predictions. These are kind of verging on extremes, but nonetheless I still think they could be possible, so let's jump into it. So let's start the video off with Constructors. So starting off in 10th place, I think everyone can probably agree with this one, is Hats. I personally think that it just makes the most sense, to be honest. They had the worst car last year, they're probably going to have the worst car this year. Now, especially with Gunther Steiner gone, I believe it's just maybe too much to ask for 9th or higher. In 9th place, I've put Williams. I just believe that James Vowell's doing a great thing with the team, but at the moment I think it's more building their team right now, and probably in the aim of next season or even 2026. I think personally Albon's a great driver, but there's also not a lot of work to do with him. But Sargent just needs that extra year to settle into the car and start preparing to knuckle down and get some serious points. The car was fast last year, and it's shown that many times reaching Q3, but I just don't think that they have the race pace, unfortunately. Coming in at number 8, I've actually gone a very bit out there. Alpine. I think they might actually swap with the next team I mentioned, so take it with a grain of salt, but I don't think they'll get any higher because of the reasons I have to come later in the video. But where we sit right now, Alpine is 8th. Don't get me wrong, Ocon and Gasly are very consistent drivers and both doing a great job. But things have taken a turn this season, and I think that just leaves them to fend for themselves at the back of the grid. In 7th, I think we're going to have Sauber or Kickstake F1 team or whatever floats your boat. I think that Zhou and Bottas didn't have the best season last year, but with their new sponsors, I think the money might be able to bring them a little bit up because they might be able to just build that little bit better of a car that gives them a little bit of an edge over Alpine. Who knows though? Again, I think this spot is interchangeable with Alpine, but I think probably for now, who knows, I'm just going to stick them here. In 6th, I've put Cash App, WhatsApp, Visa, MasterCard, Direct Debit, Amex, Platinum Racing Bulls. Yuki and Daniel are amazing drivers, and they've showed very good results last year, considering the car and the fact that Daniel came 17th, only being present for a handful of races, shows that the duo can be good. The reason I'm putting them so high on the list is actually because of the car. We know that Cash App will be using most of the parts from the RB19, which was a very dominant car last year, so building off of that project, I think they have a chance to sit at the top of the midfield, but not any higher than 6th, which is still good considering they finished 8th last year. Coming in 5th, I'm torn between two teams here, but ultimately I'm going to stick with Aston Martin or Fernando Alonso Racing if you want to go by last year. Last year was a very interesting year for Aston Martin, dominating the first half of the year with their car development, but then falling off so hard after the mid-season break. Alonso has a lot of potential to be a strong competitor, even with a bad car, much like last year, for example, when he beat Sergio Perez at Brazil. But at the end of the day, with Lance in the other seat, I don't see them progressing much further, and I think it's more of just a setback. I think Lawrence needs to just make the call and get rid of his son. In 4th place, I've got McLaren. I think it's fair to say that this being that Oscar is still fresh into F1, while he had an amazing rookie year, and I think he will beat Lando in a Grand Prix win this year, I just unfortunately think they'll have a tough time scoring any higher if they have a repeat of last season. McLaren definitely almost caught up to Red Bull in the final races of 2023, but will it be enough to roll into the new season with a new car and take off from where they left? I don't know. I hope so, because then that will place them probably higher in this list. But assuming that it goes sort of similar like last year and the year before that, I'm going to have to say they're in 4th. Now, number 3, I've put Ferrari. I think Ferrari may kill it this season and really go back to the offence regarding Leclerc doesn't bin it into any walls in qualifying or formation. But on a serious note, however, Sainz has showed some excellent driving last year, and I think that Charles Sainz driver pairing is going to hold up pretty well this year, so long as the car and the strategy can back them. I definitely think they're going to be a strong, duo on this grid, and potentially maybe higher. Who knows? We'll see. But anyway, moving on to number 2. In 2nd, I've actually gone Red Bull, and while this may come as a surprise, in hindsight, do I think Max will fall off this year? No, but I do think that Checo might, and he might potentially have a bad year collecting points for the team, and especially with all the cloudiness around Christian Horner staying as team principal, I think it could cause a very negative shift within the team that causes some problems for them in the second half of the season. And first, I've obviously put Mercedes. I think Lewis showed last year that he can compete with Checo in the Red Bull, and assuming Checo does have a bad year this year and Lewis has a good one, being it is his send-off year for Mercedes, so he will be putting in everything, I think Lewis can really pull some points out the bag. And for George, I think he's getting there. I think he's learning the ropes of the team, and don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic driver, and I think that, he may have a repeat of 2022 outscoring Lewis, being as the car will likely be built around him again this year. I know he didn't do so well finishing 8th in the Drivers' Championship last year, but I think that's mainly to do with his bad luck. I mean, he had a few car problems like Australia and Zandvoort that lost him monumental points, but also had a few slip-ups like Singapore and Vegas, which I think he could iron out this year, so who knows. If the two can pull off a really good season, then yeah, I don't see why they can't be first. Now, that's it for the Constructors Championship. Now, let's take a look at the Drivers' Championship. So, starting way back in 22nd, and yes, I said 22nd place, I'm going with Logan Sargent. I think last year is enough for me to make that statement, and I think everyone, or at least almost everyone, can agree with me. Don't think there's really much more to say. It's kind of obvious. So, Logan Sargent, sorry, 22nd. In 21st, I'm actually going to go with Théo Pourchaire, and I do think he'll get a race or two. Maybe a sprint format weekend, maybe not. But I think after what he showed in that car in Abu Dhabi at the end of last year, I definitely think he could give half the grid a run for their money and score some valuable points for the team, but also putting himself above some other drivers. I mean, Logan Sargent. In 20th, I have Liam Lawson. Same as last year. I think we'll see him subbing in for someone, whether it's Yuki, Daniel, Max, or Perez. He's a great driver and he's more than capable of scoring points. He's proved that to everyone, so need I say more? I definitely think he will. And if he gets that opportunity, he's definitely going to outscore anyone else that maybe gets a chance. 19th, I've got Kevin Magnussen. Not much to be said here either. I just don't think he'll have the best season, especially sitting in that boat of a Haas. Number 18, I've actually gone with Nico Hülkenberg. He's a great driver, but he's in the wrong car, and I just don't see the car offering him any support in maintaining the pace to gain important points. Don't get me wrong, I love Hülkenberg, and I think if it was in a different car, it'd be a different story. But he's in a Haas, and his teammate is Kevin Magnussen, and I don't think there's much more to say. 17th, Zhou Guanyu. I think last year reflects his performance pretty well, and while the car was second last in the Constructors, I just don't know if a lot will change for him as a driver, even if he does get a better car like I mentioned earlier. So we'll just have to see where that one goes, but you know, as far as I'm aware, there's some shifts this year, and Zhou is just unfortunately not in one of the teams that's going to have those positive shifts. 16th, Valtteri Bottas. Again, I just don't think the platform is there for him. I hope I'm wrong, but he was slow last year, and I think he'll be slow this year. 15th, we've got Esti Besti.
Where has this turn of form come from?
Esti Besti's on the podium, baby!
And if it wasn't for Cash App getting the RB19 body, I would be putting him much higher on this list, but I actually think this will be the turning point for Alpine, unfortunately. In 14th, I've got Alex Albon. He has shown us many times that he can drive a slow car fast, but at the end of the day, he's still stuck in a slow car. And whether or not the rumours are true and Albon will be going to Red Bull in 2025, he's in a Williams now, he's a great driver, but the Williams project just isn't developed yet. And unfortunately, I don't see him getting much further. To finish the Williams sandwich, I guess, I've got Pierre Gasly. Same as Ocon, I think Gasly's pace is a bit better, and last year it often reflected that, but again, we can only see with time. I do think that with, again, Cash App getting the RB19 body, it's just another team to go in front of them, unfortunately. So we'll just have to see. In 12th, I've put Yuki. Unpopular opinion, I know, but I just don't think Yuki's worth the hype, and we've seen it time and time again. Yuki isn't fully committed to being the best driver he can. You know, while he is talented and while he will be sitting in basically an RB19, I just don't think that's enough. In 11th, I've got Lance Stroll, and assuming he has the same sort of season as last year and Aston gives him a decent enough car, I think he could sit firmly within the lower midfield. Not great, but again, I think Lawrence just needs to pull the plug on that one. In 10th place, I'm going Oscar Piastri. Now he's a great upcoming world champion. I think we all know he is, but he is in his second year of F1, and I think it won't be until 2025 we start seeing some highly competitive results from Piastri. But nonetheless, he's going to have a great season this year, and I look forward to seeing where he scores. 9th place, Lando Norris. And I think this is the last year Lando will outscore his teammate. Oscar will be a better driver next year. Sorry, not sorry to the Lando fans, but with the way the rest of the grid is going, I just can't justify putting him any higher. Now for 8th place, this is one of my outlandish takes, but Daniel Ricciardo. And I think considering his results in the car he had for only a handful of races last year shows how dedicated he is to proving himself worthy of the Red Bull seat in 2025. And with the RB19 platform beneath him, I think we'll see some great results from him. So I think he deserves 8th place personally. In 7th, Charles Leclerc. And I'm sorry Ferrari fans, but I think it's going to be a bit crammed in these top spots, and while I do think Ferrari will finish 3rd in the Constructors, Charles is still driving a Ferrari with Ferrari engineers, and I also think the pressure of having Lewis with him next year will create a few chokes where he tries to prove himself worthy, and, you know, yeah, I just don't think it's going to go too well for him. Number 6, Sergio Perez. I'm saying it now, he'll have a bad season and Red Bull will drop him at the end of it. Sergio's a great driver, but we can't ignore the fact that in a significantly superior car, he could barely maintain second place, and that says a lot, and I think that with these Albon, Ricciardo, Lawson rumours, I think it just may get to Sergio a bit too much and cause him to have a bad season. Number 5, Fernando Alonso. And assuming Aston does the same thing as last year, I think it's fair to say he'll end up near the top, but not close enough to the top. But if the rumours are true, that he may end up in Mercedes in 2025, I think that could definitely change. Maybe world champion, who knows? But this year, he's in an Aston Martin, Lawrence Stroll is his boss, and Lance Stroll is his teammate, so have I said enough? Number 4, Lewis Hamilton. 3rd last year, 4th this year. I think George will have an amazing season and probably outperform him, being the car is again built around George, and Lewis may drop off a bit considering his Ferrari move is at the end of the year, and you know, we've seen it in the past. Drivers sometimes just don't care about their team when they're moving. Now I can't put him any higher, but number 3 we have George Russell, and I think I've said it enough that he's on the road to success. He's going to be the face of Mercedes moving on from 2025. He's here to stay, and I think he's going to give all the reason to, especially with less pressure of having Lewis next year. He knows his seat's safe, and he's got every reason to chill out and take it a bit more calm this season, so I think that should work out better for him. And in 2nd place, Carlos Sainz, and while I do think there's potentially wins the title this year, I think Max will be once again too dominant. I do however think Sainz will perform an amazing season and make Ferrari regret booting him over Leclerc. I think Sainz is the better driver, and I'm not even sorry for saying it. And last but not least, it's obviously the Dutch King himself. Red Bull are clearly ahead of all the other teams, and if Sergio does have a good season, he will likely support Max and Red Bull in winning both titles. However, if Christian Horner does go, this may cause some complications. Sainz could get on top. Maybe even Lewis, or George, or Alonso. Who knows? Silly season is at an all-time high right now, so we just gotta hope it chills out. And there you have it. That's my outlandish predictions for 2024. If you did enjoy this video and would like to see more, like the video and do subscribe as it does help. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.